Marshall D. Teach, aka Blackbeard, the strongest pirate in One Piece today. Now, a lot of people will hear that statement and say, how the hell can Blackbeard be the strongest when Kaido says Haki transcends all in regards to Roger? Well, first and foremost, the obvious is that is Kaido's interpretation. Now, people will be like, oh, Oda's putting in the manga, whatever the case may be. We take different statements based on who they're coming from and where they're sourced. So a narrator statement that verbatim says this would be different than a character giving their opinion. Saying that on the basis that the likes of Roger, potentially even like Rayleigh, Garp, obviously we've seen characters like this, Shanks as well, they've reached the top without having a devil fruit, right? The ironic thing about all this is that yes, Luffy is using advanced conquerors, but the thing that undoubtedly spells Kaido's downfall is G5, which comes from a devil fruit. Even Kaido's own ideology, where he adds himself a devil fruit that amps all his stats, is just directly contradictory. Of course, Haki is the most important thing in terms of if you take your average Joe guy and you say, hey, do you want the most OP devil fruit or do you want the most OP Haki? You should pick Haki. The case when it comes to Blackbeard is that Blackbeard isn't the average Joe guy. He is able to take on 2 devil fruits, and they're not just any 2 devil fruits, they're the 2 strongest devil fruits in the One Piece world. Even after the reveal of the god fruits, even after the reveal of Luffy's fruit, all it says about Luffy's fruit is that it is the most ridiculous power. It never says anything about being the strongest, so that statement still holds validity to this day. Now, a statement that coincides with that is that it says wielding both these devil fruits, the darkness that can nullify devil fruit powers and the earthquakes that have absolute destructive capability, this power would truly be the strongest. This is what a lot of people use to take Blackbeard to the pinnacle of the verse. Now, this has not been contradicted yet. Obviously, we've never seen Blackbeard get defeated, never seen anybody overcome these 2 abilities. Now, another statement that coincides is that the Yami Yami no Mi is stated to have infinite gravity. Basically, it's implying that he has infinite AP in the palm of his hand. A lot of people think that the Yami Yami only serves to nullify devil fruits. That's not the case. Basically, having Fujitori's devil fruit on crack in the palm of his hand, he can just apply infinite gravitational force to. That doesn't mean he's going to apply that same force in every single interaction. That doesn't mean he's going to instantly have access to this force. It just means that over time he can just infinitely apply force. Now, in fairness, if you want to just say that this is interpretation statement from Blackbeard's own opinion that he has infinite gravity, that he doesn't have any way to measure it, that should be obvious. But it's kind of different in regards to like the Haki transcends all statement from Kaido, because Kaido's making a blanket statement for the entire verse, like when it comes to Haki versus fucking devil fruits, that Haki can transcend any devil fruit. Now, it's different when it comes to like a fruit user giving a statement about their fruit, especially in terms of Blackbeard, because Blackbeard's one of the smartest characters in the verse and he has in-depth knowledge of the fruit. Obviously, like I said, he's not going to be able to measure infinite gravitational force, but devil fruit users do have knowledge of their fruit. Now, of course, you can hit into the no limits fallacy and everything like that, where it's like, obviously there should be a limit, probably ties to Blackbeard's own capabilities. But again, this is just a statement to take, and regardless, it implies an immense amount of AP. You might be able to say that Logia users have infinite amounts of their element anyway, like all of them do. You could say like Akainu has infinite magma. This is stated to be the devil fruit boasting the highest offensive capability. If you have infinite gravitational force, wouldn't that be a higher offensive capability than Akainu's? You would think, right? But then it's like, well, if you just put it in the context where it's like all Logias would have infinite amounts of their element, it kind of just takes it away. And then you have Akainu's having more AP. Now, where people are going to say, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. We've seen Law almost beat Blackbeard. So Law's instance with Blackbeard, it's not actually even a feat for Law. What ends up happening is that Blackbeard is a tactician combatant. He goes in with knowledge of his opponents, right? That's why there's some instances where he runs away from fights. He doesn't have absolute certainty he's going to win. We're going to get into that later. But when he goes and pulls up on Law, he has knowledge of Law's ability, but he didn't have knowledge of the Awakening because it was never revealed. Now, he did not know Law was able to emit the room from another object other than himself. So when Law emits the rune from the Pegasus and splits it in half, he's actually caught by surprise. Now, this isn't an attack on Blackbeard anyway, so there's really nothing for him to react to. This is an attack on the Pegasus. It still caught him by surprise. But the big thing is that when he's falling, this is when Law gets the damage on him, right? Blackbeard initially throws out a quake and tries to hit people, but he cannot react to Law in the way he normally would. Meaning Law would not scale to Blackbeard's speed in this instance. He would not scale to his AP. He wouldn't scale to Blackbeard in any stat other than being able to pierce through his Dura, right? With Shock Willie, which shouldn't be surprising because Law can probably pierce through anybody's Dura. We've seen him pierce through Kaido's, we've seen him pierce through Big Mom's, etc. And now when he takes this Shock Willie, as I mentioned, he's in a compromised state, unable to defend himself how he normally would. He actually takes this Shock Willie better than Big Mom takes it while taking 10 times the pain. So we know his physical durability and stats and endurance, it is at a level that is formidable. and he laughs it off and then negs Law. He one-shots Law. People say, oh no, it was a high diff fight. No, as soon as Blackbeard got on even footing with Law, this is what happened. He blocks Law's sword with the Gurgur no Mi, proving that his reaction speed is indeed on a level where he can easily react to Law. Then he whips out the Black Vortex in his other hand and negs Law. People want to be like, oh, we don't necessarily see exactly what happens directly following this as we cut away and then we cut back. Law is on the ground just absolutely incapacitated. Thing is, Law has no means of fucking doing anything to Blackbeard without his Devil Fruit. All his feats, AP wise, because he doesn't have any advanced hockey, come from his Dur negating Devil Fruit. Same goes for his speed. Like, I'm sure he has some baseline speed, but it's going to be slower than his teleportation, and all his main baseline speed feats come from his teleportation. So as soon as he's hit by Black Vortex, where they are in the same exact spot they started in from the last panel to this panel, Law is negged. There's also no extra damage to Blackbeard after this, and there's nothing indicating anything else would have taken place. The most likely conclusion, especially coupled with the fact that Shanks one-shot his opponent, is that they're portraying Blackbeard and Shanks in a similar light, taking the new Yonkos to a new level. They're one-shotting these guys that took multiple attacks from Kaido and Big Mom. So now you have Blackbeard one-shotting a Law with no contradictions. You also have the fact that he's implied to have one-shot Marco in the entirety of the Whitebeard remnants. Marco goes on record saying, we had no chance to stand up against Teach's abilities. With both Devil Fruits, it was just going to be too much for us. And then Robin doubles down on saying they got utterly demolished. Now, the anime expounds on this, and we actually do see Teach soloing every single member. We don't outwardly get that in the manga, although the fact that Marco says we could not overcome his abilities seems to aid that argument anyway, that it was Teach just soloing all of them without any real interaction with the rest of his crew. Now we see that Marco, if you guys have seen my Marco scale, Marco does still scale above Law in my opinion. You guys can go check out my video scaling him. Marco has better feats with Big Mom, better statements from Big Mom, where she implies she needs full power to beat him in a solo capacity, where he overpowers her on a clash, clashes with her raw fist before that, and it's the Yonko Admiral feat of holding off two commanders at once and beating their ass in the midst. Not to mention he's heavily fatigued because he literally healed thousands of people that were infected with this virus that Queen gave right before fighting both of them. There's so much evidence for Marco where it's like, this is even a better feat with Marco. Then you even have a statement that Speed Gyro is actually the fastest member of this Whitebeard remnant group. So he's actually faster than Marco. So that's a little nugget. So potentially Blackbeard's even on a higher speed tier than even Marco if he's reacting to Jiro too. That's a little bit outside the box, but you might be able to make that argument if you'd like. People will still say, oh, that's not enough. Both the people you're mentioning here are Devil Fruit users, so of course Blackbeard's going to have an immense advantage. If it was a non-Devil Fruit user, it's a different story. Hockey transcends all still to this day. Well, we get an instance of a non-Devil Fruit user that has all forms of advanced hockey having an interaction with Blackbeard. That would be Rayleigh. Now, people are going to say Rayleigh's old, it's not the same. Rayleigh and Databook Deep Blue stated have lost none of his former strength. The only thing he lost is stamina, which is consistent with his statements to Kizaru that he's out of practice, sweating on panel, saying that the years have caught up to his legs, all statements indicative of stamina. He has not been training consistently. Even the instance with Kizaru was 2 years from this point. So he gets the same scaling that Kizaru gets through Rayleigh without even actually having to put hands on. He flat out says, at my age, I could have never possibly defeated Blackbeard in a 1v1. Now, if we want to take this all the way, we can just scale Rayleigh to Roger based on the fact that Rayleigh was not his subordinate, he was his partner. It's a very similar line of reasoning with Ben Beckman and Shanks, where Ben Beckman outright has a statement of being comparable in strength to Red Hair Shanks. Zoro actually gets the same statement coming out of the time skip with Luffy. Him and Luffy were equal pre-time skip, and they're always close in scaling throughout the series. The only thing separating them right now is G5. Then we also have Garp viewing Rayleigh as a similar threat to the Marines as Whitebeard, considering them both legends in the same vein, which aids it even more. You see in the anime, Whitebeard's crew has nobody to fight Rayleigh. The only person that tries is Marco, but he gets basically one finger, one shot. And like I said, you can take that with a grain of salt. I don't really scale with the anime. If you don't want to include that, you don't have to, but all the other evidence like leads to Rayleigh scaling to Roger. So you could even potentially be like, hey, look, Rayleigh at the beginning of this battle, if he had the power to put Blackbeard down, he'd do it. He doesn't. He can't win this fight. He knows Blackbeard's going to be able to tank whatever he can throw at him. You could even scale Blackbeard right to Roger there if you'd like. Not to mention, Blackbeard has feats on Whitebeard and Sengoku durability wise. He actually reacts to fucking Whitebeard's initial attack with the Gurgur no Mi and then says, you're not holding back. Obviously, this is a weakened Whitebeard, but in this instance, I'd actually argue Death's Door Whitebeard is reaffirmed in Bloodlust. Like, after Ace's death and like the attacks he hits Akainu with, he's bloodlusted, and then in this Teach battle, I'd say he's bloodlusted. So when that fights Kizaru, I'd say is the weakest version of Whitebeard we see at Marineford. The one that was slower, the one that was weaker, his will was waning. But Bloodlusted Whitebeard, he's fucking moving on adrenaline at that point. Obviously, you can't really quantify the difference. All I'll say is that the big, most impressive thing that Blackbeard does is that he tanks a point-blank Gurugura Earthquake to the dome. And all these earthquakes, regardless if Whitebeard has access to his advanced conquers or not, all these earthquakes are fucking Durineg. So he literally just shoots an earthquake through Blackbeard's brain. Blackbeard eats it, gets back up. Not to mention, the same can be said for Sengoku. Sengoku has shockwaves, probably on a slightly lesser degree than Whitebeard, but he basically has a mythical zone with Whitebeard's fruit on top of it. This is the same guy that was also relative to Roger in his prime. This is the same guy that's relative to Whitebeard. Him and Garp are like the equivalent of Roger and Whitebeard. So Sengoku is blasting Blackbeard, and initially he was beating him and his whole crew, but Blackbeard was enduring these shockwave hits, and then after feeling these shockwaves, he stares Garp and Sengoku right in the eye and says, look, do you guys really think you guys are gonna beat me? And he fully intends to fight both Garp and Sengoku here. This is very, very interesting considering Blackbeard does not take fights. He does not have absolute confidence he's gonna win. It should just serve to double down on all the statements that like the admirals had surpassed Garp and Sengoku, because you see he has much different reactions with the Kainu Naokiji, but also serves to show you that again, as I mentioned with Rayleigh, Garp being a person with no devil fruit and advanced conquerors, Sengoku having a mythical zone and advanced conquerors, he's facing down these characters that are immensely powerful, still having confidence. This is right at Marineford. This is before he can control the Guruguru no Mi to the fullest extent. This is before he gets massively more powerful after 2 years. People are still gonna say, okay, that's all well and good. I still am not sold because we don't know about Blackbeard's haki. Even if you say it doesn't matter, even if you say he's scaling above characters without a devil fruit with advanced haki, still need to see a little bit of feats with his haki. But here's the thing, we know for sure he has Armament Observation confirmed in his Viva card, but we also have seen him using haki without his devil fruits before. One instance is pretty recent in Amazon Lily S-Hawk, who we've seen have the capabilities of damaging Zoro, and S-Bear having the capabilities of damaging Luffy, as we see on panel. We see that Blackbeard literally blocks a sword slash from S-Hawk with his bare arm just coated in armament, which is a pretty reckless thing to do considering like it's pretty likely you can get your arm chopped off that way despite coating in armament. You'd have to be pretty confident in your haki to do this. He blocks it, right? Then we seen that back in their 20s, that's around the timeline where this took place because we know it wasn't when they were kids, Shanks gets his scar from Blackbeard. He literally goes out of his way to tell Whitebeard that this was not an off-guard thing. He was not being careless. Blackbeard legitimately got this feat. I'm not going to scale with this, but I'm just saying, isn't it a little ironic that after all the fights with Mihawk throughout this whole period of time, Mihawk never scarred Shanks, but Blackbeard did. So we know for sure Blackbeard is proficient in haki and he's no slouch. We don't know if he has conquers. We don't know how the extents go. We don't know if he has advanced versions, but we know he is no slouch with haki. And with the two strongest devil fruits in the verse, the statements that he's the strongest infinite gravitational force in the palm of his hand, and the fact that he is able to beat characters with all forms of advanced haki, nonetheless, it leads you to a logical conclusion that this man truly is the strongest pirate. At the very least, I think everybody can agree that he is at least top 2. It's between him and Shanks. The thing is that the highest Shanks scales right now is to an old Whitebeard. They get kind of the same portrayal with the kid instance and the law instance, but Shanks never has a statement like Blackbeard being the strongest. But we still have to see more when it comes to Blackbeard's ability, and still at this point we've seen that he is capable of contending with characters with advanced haki. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I wanted to give you guys all the information regarding Blackbeard. He does run away from Akainu. He does run away from Aokiji, but we also seen that he did run away from Rayleigh, despite Rayleigh saying he could not have won. So it's not necessarily like every instance where he runs away he's going to lose. It's just he doesn't have absolute confidence in it being a stomp. He doesn't have absolute confidence that it's going to be worthwhile for him to do this fight. Now, I do think Kuzan and Akainu having confidence about fighting him, especially given that they know the full extent of his abilities, being that they saw it in action, they know it nullifies devil fruits, is pretty good for them. They're basically implying that they can beat him alone with just haki. But both those instances, even then, are taking place. One right after Marineford, and then the second one midway through the time skip. So it's not even scaling to current Blackbeard. Take that as you will. You guys have got all the information at this point. You can come to your own conclusion. Let me know what you'd like to see next. Drop it in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. If they question how I get it, I got answers. Like, well, she got me tripping like